Just found this online in 4chan, which I know is not always a credible place by far, but I started reading through this and I was dumbstruck. So let's go through it a little bit. First of all, this is under politically incorrect, and so it's got a bunch of the Saudi leaders' names: King Abdulaziz bin Saud, and he's deceased, King of Saudi Arabia. King Abdulaziz Al Saud, fifth son of King Saud, King of Saudi Arabia until 2015. His successor is King Solomon, and I'll let you guys read through this. I'm not going to read all of it, but I am going to read the majority of it. So, as you can see here, who is next in line to be king if Solomon had died before being crowned king? Is the father of Mansur bin Makrin bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, the man killed in the helicopter crash in 11/5/2017? Mansour. I'm not going to say the whole thing because I'm butchering the names and I apologize. Son of Makrin, died on the 5th of this month, this year, the day of the failed coup on the throne of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Al-Walid, who is the billionaire businessman grandson of King Saud, has ties to DNC, Clinton, Podesta, arrested on the 4th of November this year for corruption. Owns the Four Seasons at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. Owns shares in Twitter as well as other high-tech Silicon Valley companies. Has had spats with Trump in the past. I know that's a mouthful of names just reading through this. Bear with me. Just remember 4 names: Salman, Mohammed, Makrin, and Mansour. Do you remember how President Trump visited Saudi Arabia back in May? Do you remember how warmly he was greeted by King Salman? It was a spectacle. Why was he greeted so welcomely? After all, President Obama's reception was, shall we say, less than grand. Do you remember how, after Trump's visit, Saudi Arabia started becoming more open to their policies? Woohoo, women can drive now. Do you notice how the Syrian rebellion became quiet? Do you notice how quickly ISIS was crushed after the visit? Why did Saudi Arabia suddenly want to get their oil companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange? What could have caused this? To answer this, we have to look a little further back, around 2010. It all goes back to fracking. You see, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has always relied heavily on the vast petrol reserves for wealth and prosperity, and they were ruthless. OPEC, the cartel of gasoline. You can't count the number of times throughout history that OPEC used its power to crush governments, manipulate prices, control supplies, and fund activities. If there ever was an international group of bullies, OPEC was it, and the head of this organization was the mighty Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Then came the fracking boom. Suddenly the world was no longer at the mercy of OPEC. This made them nervous. So they did what they always do. They pumped out more petrol, driving the price of gas to lowest in decades. What was their objective? To bankrupt these fracking businesses. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is rich, very rich. They figured, we'll just drive gas prices unbelievably low and take the loss until all these fracking business startups crumble. Do you remember how cheap gas got between 2013 to 16? It was ridiculous, wasn't it? But what they didn't count on was just how cheap fracking had become. So many of these businesses didn't go bankrupt, so they took another step to convince all the world that fracking was bad for the environment. So they lobbied and supplied funds to the Democratic Party. Why? Because the leftists are usually the ones who support any and all environmental regulations. Do you remember all the legal battles that fracking had to go through? Hell, it's still illegal in most blue states. Do you now understand why the Saudis donated so much money to the Clinton campaign? She was heavily favored to win, and if she did, you can bet your butt that legalizing fracking would have been on the top of her list, returning us to dependence on Arab oil. But this didn't work either. Fracking continued, and then a storm of reality hit them hard. Okay, and it goes on. So the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had vastly underestimated the amount of total shell reserves in North America. They had no idea that so much of this stuff exists. They thought maybe they could ride it out if the reserves would dry up in a decade or so, but nope. We've had enough shale supplies for at least 50 years. So, you're King Solomon. What do? You give up reliance on oil and try to use existing wealth to stay wealthy. To modernize its trade to include more than just exports of oil, they would need to build an entire industrial country from scratch. To do that, they needed the USA. And that's where President Trump comes in. You see, the May 2017 meeting between Trump and King Solomon, my computer got brighter, and his son Mohammed was not just another meeting, it was a business meeting. King Solomon asked Trump for help. Trump was more than willing to give it, like listing the oil companies on the New York Stock Exchange, but his help would come with a price: liberalization and the stop of illegal funding. No more contributions to American politics, no more supplying funds to terrorists or splinter groups. King Solomon took the deal. All of a sudden, women were allowed to drive, ISIS was retreating, Syrian rebels suddenly ran out of ammunition. Yay, all good. Up to this point. Okay, my dog is bugging me, sorry. Now comes the bad. Not all the royalties in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are into this. They don't like losing the power. What's worse, they don't want to become liberal. They now start resenting King Solomon. They start plotting against him. At the forefront of this movement is none other than the previous Deputy Crown Prince, Makrin. I cannot say that name. My apologies. And his son Mansour, the man killed in the helicopter crash on the 5th of this month. October 1st, the top floors of Mandalay Bay is not Mandalay Bay, but Four Seasons, owned by billionaire Talal. Who was occupying that whole floor that night? I can't remember where, but I heard the whole floor was reserved that week. Now, no one would do that unless they were Saudi royalty. We don't know for sure, but my guess is Crown Prince Mohammed. We know it wasn't King Solomon because he was in Russia, and there's the link. Okay, the plan is to take out the Crown Prince, then kill King Solomon. With the King and the Crown Prince dead, who's next in line? Yep, the former Deputy Crown Prince McQueen. So, posing as terrorists who want to buy the guns for some terrorist attack, they dupe the CIA or FBI to supply the guns to the death squad. The real plan is to climb the stairs right after the deal and kill the VIP in the floors above them. This is why the weapons cache was located on the 32nd floor. They would only have to climb a few stairs or take the elevator up a little to start the killing. Now here's what happened that night. And this is where some truth actually, hopefully the truth, comes out. Okay. Paddock is the contact man to supply the guns. He meets a couple of assassins ahead of time. Remember, the shooting starts at 10:05. At this point, Paddock is thinking this is a gun deal. Only a few magazines are loaded. He merely wants to show the customers how to load the chambers, etc. What he doesn't know is that the advance team was set to secure the floor, that all but one entry point to the floor would be barricaded. Crucial, since the reason Campos becomes suspicious of the blocked doors is what ultimately leads him to investigate. The reason for the barricade is that once the assault starts, the assassins want to make sure to impede the authorities as much as possible from reaching the top floors. CIA or FBI or Trump's own intelligence got wind of the assassination that was about to take place. Immediate action was taken to round up the assassins. Remember, we're talking about an army of assassins here. You can't kill a crown prince who's protected by 30 armed bodyguards by pulling a Jack Ruby. I estimate at least 20 assassins in total. Moving on. Pardon me, my throat's getting a little dry. It's cold and dry out here already. Well, it is November. Okay, moving on. What the assassins didn't know is that the prince had disguised himself as a regular dude to enjoy the nightlife in Vegas. Saudi princes have been known to do this. He had slipped away from the Mandalay and was at the Tropicana playing some cards. As soon as the FBI Before some other agency learned of the assassination plot, they stormed the Tropicana and extracted the prints. The video can be seen here. Check out the link. I've seen it before. Everybody was trying to figure it out. They lead him out of the casino and escort him to the nearest helipad to be picked up, but on the way, they encounter some resistance from a few assassins, hence the firefight at the airport. Eventually, he makes it to the chopper and is whisked away. This explains the flight radar reports you see all over right now. It says all over the net. And YouTube. Meanwhile, the FBI has gathered up as many of the assassins as they can. A few are armed with sidearms. They don't have rifles yet because the rendezvous with Paddock hasn't occurred yet. Hence the random firefights. Oops. Sorry. Hence the random firefights. Where am I at? Okay. At various casinos that night. A few are killed, and the Laura Loomer videos of covered up dead people. There's the link for that too. Okay, moving on. Sorry about me bumping that. The assassins already in Paddock's room gets a call. They are told that the prince is not in the suite above, that he's being escorted out of the Tropicana. They start panicking if they get caught in this plot to assassinate a crown prince. Not only are they dead, but their employer's dead as well. They come up with a plan. They're going to kill Paddock and start firing on the crowd below. They're going to make him a crazy lone gunman, so they kill Paddock. They break a window. They pick up a rifle and start firing at the crowd. After a couple of magazines, they realize that the other mags aren't loaded. Crap. They start reloading as fast as possible. This is why the average time between bursts of fire is 40 seconds. One of them gets an idea. Let me go to the other room and break a window and shoot at the fuel tanks of the nearby airport. This will draw the police away from the Mandalay and they can escape. So he goes and attempts just that. Unfortunately, the tanks do not blow up, but this time, Jesus Campos is knocking on the door, so they just unload on him. This is why there are supposedly 200 shots through the door. Campos escapes a lethal shot and calls in security. Now the assassins are getting nervous. They realize that someone in the hotel knows that someone's firing. They fire as much as they can. They are thinking as soon as this barrage is done, we run. But the SWAT team starts knocking on the door. The assassins realize they're screwed, so the first one shoots himself. This is the first of the single shots you hear at the end. The second assassin isn't so sure he doesn't want to die. So, after 10 seconds of courage gathering, he shoots himself as well. Moving on. The SWAT team bursts in and finds 3 bodies. They start asking questions, but because the FBI is already there, remember they extracted the prints, they take over. They quickly assess the situation. They realize the implications. They remove the 2 assassins' bodies, take a picture of Paddock lying there, and release it to 4chan to solidify their narrative. Paddock is made the patsy. Why? Because of a failed Saudi assassination attempt. If a failed Saudi assassination attempt was responsible for the deaths, if the FBI and CIA had supplied the guns that killed 58 innocent people, not counting Paddock since he's an asset, then 2 things would happen. 1, we would demand that we go to war with Saudi Arabia, and 2, whichever organization that Paddock worked for would be utterly dismantled, as it should be. Okay, and here is the last little bit of Q's information on it. Woo, lads, I know, quite a story. Now let's fast forward 1 month later. We know a missile was intercepted by the Saudi military on November 3rd or 4th. This was probably the final effort by the anti-King Salman group. This was their last-ditch effort to kill him, or it was staged to give King Salman the excuse to round everyone up in retaliation of the assassination attempt. We know that massive raids and the rounding of Saudi princes took place on the 5th. I will guarantee you that all of these people are anti-Salman Muhammad. And who was just killed? Yes, the son of Makrin Mansour. Mansour's death was retaliation. I have no doubt of it. He was executed. Okay, now that this has happened, what's next? Well, my guess will be that we learn all of the funding that has been coming out of Saudi Arabia for the past decade. It will expose their connections to the DNC. We will learn that they have been at the root of all the turmoil in the Middle East. Then they will all be executed. And this is by Q, or Quantum. Some really surprising news. So now the challenge is to figure out if this is completely true, all truth, or what the truth really is now that we've learned this part, and let's see if we can get the pieces together. All right, well, there's still more to be done, and we're digging to find out what's really going on. But this is a big break in information, and I hope this helps people. Take care and God bless. Bye-bye.